Welcome into the Gridiron Grind, our college football podcast, episode 10 of the college football podcast. Jimmy, October equals Texas Rangers baseball. How about those Rangers going to play in the World Series for just the third time on Friday?
Love it.
Take on the Diamondbacks.
Love it. You know, and I would rather have played the Diamondbacks than the Phillies. Don't know too much about the Diamondbacks, hate to say, but the brief scouting report that I saw, I don't even know if it's correct, was Philly had better bats, but their pitching was suspect. Whereas Arizona's pitching was pretty good, but their bats, you know,
bullpen,
so I'm going.
Their bullpen is probably the best bullpen in baseball.
Yeah, that's kind of what they were saying.
So that's tough. But also the Rangers, where they've been successful, the Rangers have the number one offense in the league, and a lot of the times they win, it's because they score early. So that could help. You know, the Rangers can score early, get to the lead, then that bullpen won't be as big of a factor if you already have a lead. So
yeah, and that's why I wanted to play the Diamondbacks, because I like our bats. I did not like our pitching going against Bryce Harper and company. So
yeah, I'll
say glad to see Arizona pull that one out.
The Diamondbacks don't have a lot of power. They are scrappy though. They're tough outs.
Yeah.
They can make pitchers work. Like if Scherzer doesn't, it appears he's not 100% back. Like they could frustrate Scherzer, make him throw a lot of pitches. So we'll see there. But Eovaldi, you know, he throws a lot of strikes, but they're scrappy and they, you know, so I don't know. Eovaldi's gonna pitch game one. The Diamondbacks are throwing their worst starting pitcher. I forget his name, but his numbers are terrible. He's given up 6 runs. His ERA is 6 in the postseason. He's 2-2.
Good.
So it's kind of like, I don't know if they're just kind of like, hey, we'll just see what happens game one, you know?
Yeah. Because if that guy wins somehow, you're going, oh, I love our chances.
Exactly. Like, hey, we're going to throw this guy against their best, and we'll see what happens. If we somehow can get it close and we get the bullpen in there, then we got a chance. We stole one. But the bad news for the Rangers, they're going to have to find a way to win at home.
Yeah,
because it's they have home field advantage, 4 of 7. So
we're gonna have to find a way to win at least one at home, if we're gonna win everyone else on the road. So that was wild. That was probably the most wild stat, was how sweep them in Houston, get swept at home, sweep them in Houston. I would have never guessed that.
It's only the second time ever, and that both times it's happened against Houston. Second time ever in a 7-game series that the teams have won the away teams have won all the games. And it was when the Nationals beat the Astros for the World Series. The Nationals won all 4 games in Houston for the World Series. I think that was in 2019.
Yeah, we got a pitcher from that team, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah. And listen, I know he's not back to 100%, but he's still pitching. If it lines up again, you get Max Scherzer game 7 of the World Series, give me Mad Max. I'll take my chances. Even if he's not 100%, I'll take that mentality and go for there.
Bumgarner tweeted Bochy or texted Bochy and said Bumgarner was ready to throw. I'll bring in Madison Bumgarner.
Bring it in.
Don't care.
I think there's rules against signing free agents this late in the season, but somehow, some way, that'd be sweet. But speaking of Bruce Bochy, what a manager. I mean, it's like all this team was missing was that, you know?
Yeah.
Got some pitching pieces in the offseason. Ray Davis spending a little money, and then we get Bruce Bochy, and it's unbelievable.
How big, I mean, we go get Simeon and Sager.
Yeah.
Bring them in, sign them, get things turned around. Not lucky that the Cardinals front office can't keep a prospect. We get Atlas Garcia for basically a TV dinner and a washing machine. And
I didn't know this. Did you hear him say this game 7 against the Astros? I didn't know this. Yeah, we got him for the Cardinals for nothing. We put him on waivers. We had him for a week, and we're like, we don't want him. We'll put him on waivers, and anybody can claim him. Nobody claimed him. So how waivers work, you put him on waivers. If nobody claims him, then you get him back. And that's what happened. Nobody wanted him. I didn't realize we did that. And so
I didn't
you get lucky there. You get him. You get lucky with this Evan Carter. He was in Double-A a couple months ago.
21 years old, man. He's been up in September. Lee.
It's unbelievable. I
mean-
need to get a Carter jersey because that was my baseball number in college at Angelo State, and we were blue jerseys. My number was 32, Carter. I need to get.
I've got 2 Garcia jerseys. So yeah, I get it. You got to get it while they got players on the team with your last name and they're actually good.
Cousin Evan. I'll be in. I'm going to be there Friday. See Cousin Evan and see Jimmy's cousin El Bombe in action.
Right.
So super excited for the Rangers. Let's talk about some college football. Last week, not an exciting week this week on paper, but we have a question, and it's kind of going to be the focal point. This could be a week on paper. You know, the biggest game is Oregon-Utah, but there's not a lot of ranked versus ranked matchups. But when you look at kind of what some of the top 10 teams have to deal with this week, this is going to be one of those not exciting on paper, but I got a feeling there's going to be some upsets this week. So we got a question about that. Let's talk about last week a little bit. Jimmy had USC falls again, loses 2 in a row. Bama somehow wins again after getting dominated the first half. They find a way in the second half to dominate Tennessee in return, like 27 unanswered, I think it was. Ohio State beat Penn State in the game of the week. I figured Ohio State was a better team. Penn State, they're not there yet. They're just not there yet. They haven't played anybody. They're not there yet. And then Oklahoma, Texas, and Washington all survive close calls. Oklahoma beats UCF by a 2-point conversion. UCF couldn't convert. Texas, after being up 21-0 against Houston, allows Houston to come back, tie it up. Texas ends up winning a touchdown, lose quarterback Quinn Ewers. I'm hearing from my sources down there, it's going to be maybe 4 weeks. They're planning on it being 4 games, which would put him back possibly for Texas Tech, but they're really hoping he's back if they were to make it, depending on where they're at in the standings. If it looks like they're going to make the conference championship, they just want him back for that game. If that's going to be borderline, he might try to come back before that, but it's looking like it might be all of 4 weeks. And then Washington, Jimmy, that most high-powered offense in the country, didn't even score an offensive touchdown at home against Arizona State after what they did to Oregon. How they ended up winning, they were losing, and Arizona State was they were up 7-6, I believe. And they're about to go in and score a touchdown in the fourth quarter against Washington, and probably put it out of reach. And the kid throws a pick 6 right at the goal line. Washington wins, didn't even get an offensive touchdown. What a weekend.
Yeah, 89-yard interception return. And that, to me, is the most surprising. You know, Texas's close game with Houston, well, you lose your starting quarterback. Find me a team, who come in, unless you're, Green Bay Packers there with Aaron Rodgers, where you've got a backup quarterback that, and Blake Murphy played great.
It wasn't only that, they lost 5 starters on defense in that game as well. So they were
injury bug, the
Texas
Texas.
Texas.
I didn't put too much stock in that. The Washington game, Arizona State was 1-5.
Yeah, they're not good.
Game 1-6, excuse me. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I thought Washington was going to come out and just explode, and this is one of those cases we see, and teams do it, and the really good ones don't, especially that often. But I think they played up for Oregon, and then this was their kind of comeback down to earth. And Arizona State, I mean, every team is going to give you their all when you've got something to play for and they don't. That's across the board. I don't care what it is. And Washington got lucky. They escaped because, if they punch that in and score, I mean, it's over. Nothing they can do. And that one to me was the craziest.
I was shocked.
They're playing pretty competitive, and you knew they were going to try to beat Gabriel for leaving them high and dry. But the Washington Arizona State one was the one that jumped out to me.
Also, the UCF Oklahoma game, that was bound to happen because Gus Malzahn, if you track him in his career as head coach, he has like one major upset a season. And obviously that didn't happen last week, but it almost happened. And he had 2 weeks. Oklahoma and UCF were both off a bye. Gus Malzahn's good for one of those. He didn't get it done, but if you follow, he has one huge upset a year. And I kind of had that one circled. I didn't think they were quite good enough. And turns out they weren't, but it ended up being close. They were close. Dude, I think Bama's getting better every week. Somehow they should have lost that game according to the first half.
Yeah.
Tennessee dominated them, and then
Up 20-7 at halftime. They give up 27 unanswered in the fourth quarter. 17 in the third, 10 in the fourth.
It was like watching two different games, first half and second half. And
unreal.
Okay, so we'll talk more about USC. We got one of our questions of the week is about USC. Of course, they lost to Utah after getting pummeled by Notre Dame. So we'll address that one more in our questions. So let's move to our questions of the week. Get your question in. You can email us at gridirongrindsports@gmail.com. Comment on our videos. DM us on Twitter, Instagram. We'll get to it. Pick our favorite questions for the week. We got two. We picked two a week for the college one, and we got two this week. I'll start it off with this is a really good question. We'll start off with Jimmy. This one is from John from Hugo, Oklahoma via Twitter. And John asked, with 7 of the top 10 teams playing on the road this week, who should be on upset alert the most? And I'll give you the rundown. I wrote them down. So here's kind of I didn't include Penn State. Penn State is hosting Indiana, and they're like a 33-point favorite. So I'm not going to put them here. But look at this slate of top 10 games. And like John said, 7 of the top 10 are on the road. You got 4 Florida State is at Wake Forest. You got 6 Oklahoma at Kansas. That's a 10-point spread. Number 1 Georgia. It's neutral field, but number 1 Georgia against Florida. BYU's at Texas. Now, Texas is one of the top 10 teams at home, but again, starting a young quarterback making his first start and without some other defensive players. That Texas still shockingly favored by 17.5. Number 8, Oregon at 13, Utah. I mean, that's kind of a given. That's a top 13 game. Utah's really good. 5, Washington at Stanford. Washington's still favored by 27. Number 3, Ohio State at Wisconsin. And number 10, Oregon State at Arizona. That one is 3.5. And Arizona has been a cover machine. So, Jimmy, of those, who are you looking at? Who could be on upset alert this week?
I'm gonna answer this 2 ways. One is the easy pick, and it was gonna be my only one until I started really listening. Utah, it's Oregon at Utah.
Yeah.
Simply because Oregon 6-1. We saw what Washington was able to do to them. Now Utah comes in with this defense. Bo Nix trying to stay in the playoff hunt, trying to stay in the Heisman hunt. Oregon, this is a big game for both teams. And to me, in Utah with that defense, Oregon, one more loss. Again, no 2-loss teams ever been in. I think Oregon would be done out if Utah wins. Same with Utah. But I think Oregon needs to they're going to have to come out and play mistake-free football, because this game could be another one of 14-7, that Cal-Utah game that we saw, Utah-UCLA. So that one. And then second, I don't think they cover, but Texas BYU, simply because starting a new quarterback and the injury bug on defense. JT Daniels somehow, not JT Daniels, that he's at Rice. I just
you talking about Keldon Slovis for BYU?
Slovis, Keaton Slovis. The BYU is, of course, Arkansas is not very good, but he goes into Fayetteville and wins. BYU,
they're 5-2.
5-2. So BYU, that's one that I think Texas. Again, I think Texas has the better team, athletes, all 3 phases of the game. But when you're starting a quarterback and, you've got Arch behind him and Malik Murphy comes out, maybe doesn't look good, trying to do too much, you're going to have the push for Arch. And all that's going to do, I think, is going to feed into BYU. But I think those are my 2 teams. But it is in Austin. So that's kind of,
and I was shocked.
That's a big advantage, Texas.
Shocked Vegas has Texas as 17.5-point favorite. I don't see it. I'm not giving that one out.
I don't see them covering, but I see them winning.
I can see Texas winning because they're gonna they have a heck of a running game. Jonathan Brooks is second in the nation in yards per game. I think Texas is probably going to try to lean on the run game and try to play great defense. Slovis in a rushing attack, and when Texas has been successful against quarterbacks who are statues and they can blitz you. Heck, they even got to Milroe against Alabama, but Milroe didn't run that much in that game. So I think Texas is going to just try to lean on the defense and running game. But yeah, they'd have to win by 3 touchdowns to cover basically because it's 17.5. That's tough to see. Also, Georgia doesn't have Brock Bowers. Right. That's basically been the guy they're throwing the football to. Position by position, he's the best football player in the country, in my opinion. So be interesting, but they had 2 weeks to get ready without him. You talked about Oregon, Utah, but Oregon State at Arizona. Arizona is playing some ball. I mean, they just put a whooping on Washington State. I think they're only like 4-3, but man, they cover almost every week. And 3.5, that's going to be a tough one. Let me ask you an additional question, Jimmy, that I just came up with. So 7 of the top 10 are on the road. And then you got a couple of home ones that, well, Texas is the home one, starting a new quarterback, first start. If I put it at, because you got to factor in Oregon could lose on the road at Utah. If I put it at 1.5 losses for top 10 teams this week, you taking the over or under 1.5 top 10 losses. I think I'd take the over. I think at least 2. I think at least 2 top 10 teams lose this week.
Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see. I mean,
because what we're not even talking about is Ohio State at Wisconsin, and Wisconsin is in the driver's seat on their side of the Big Ten. And Ohio State just had a huge emotional win over Penn State. Now they go on the road. I mean, these are young kids, and they got a 19-year-old quarterback. You know, they're not. You know, Wisconsin could play above, Ohio State could play down, and Ohio State might drop one. I mean, I think that could happen. I don't know.
I could see for sure at least one losing. I would probably I would take that over 1.5. Like I said, Oregon loses, and then it's kind of free for all after that. Like you said, a lot of tough games, and that Ohio State Wisconsin, it's a Big Ten matchup. When is that one? Is that another one of those terrible 11 o'clock games?
It might be. 10? I'd have to look.
It is.
Is it Fox 11 o'clock?
Nope. Sorry, it's a night game, 6:30 p.m. in Madison. So
jump around gets playing after the third quarter. It's a close game.
Yeah. So that's a great call. For my upset alert, I guess I'm going to go with Oregon, and then also honorable mention Texas, and I'll throw Ohio State. I'm going to take a page out of your book. I'm going to throw Ohio State in there too. Wisconsin's going to play tough, man. They got to Ohio State's going to have to be on point. All the teams here on out, whether you're playing Florida International or Florida State, you're going to have to be on the offensive and really play mistake-free football here to finish out the season.
And let's not forget, last week we just had North Carolina, after their big win against Miami, lose to Virginia, a 1-win Virginia team.
Yeah, how about that?
College kids, they're kids. Anything can happen. So I think we're gonna have multiple top 10 teams lose this week, and I think on paper it doesn't look like it, but I think this is going to be the weekend we're going to have multiple top 10 teams lose, especially with
a lot of emotional games last week, like you said, coming off of it. So, yep. I like it.
Yeah, thanks for the question, John from Hugo, Oklahoma.
All right, Creta, I got one from you. This comes from Mike from Dallas, Texas, via Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, whatever you use. I use Twitter.
Yeah, I still say Twitter.
Greg uses Twitter. Some people use X. Mike from Dallas says, "Hey guys, love the show. What do y'all think about Emmanuel Acho's tweet suggesting that Caleb Williams should sit out the rest of the season?" This is your boy Acho.
Yeah,
one of them. Well, let's see what you say. Let me hear your opinion.
Not everybody from Texas, my boy. Did you see the tweet? Have you seen it?
No.
Basically, all right.
I heard him comment, but I didn't see.
So this is his tweet. He was basically saying Caleb Williams should sit out because playing for national championship, making the playoff, long shot, Playing for the Pac-12 is a long shot. Winning the Heisman is a long shot. He should sit out the rest of the season because he's not going to play in the bowl game. I mean, more than likely he's going to sit out the bowl game. And he said the risk is not – it's greater than the reward of being a high draft pick, being healthy. So Emmanuel Acho, talking head, is saying at Fox, saying just quit on your team halfway through the season, a little bit more than halfway through the season, and just go ahead and set out now and be a top draft pick. What do I think about it? I think it's ridiculous. I think that would be terrible for college football. I mean, I'm not in favor of guys setting out of bowl games to begin with, but I understand it at least. Like, okay, I mean, you're up for millions of dollars, and in football, the average career is what, 3, 4, 5 years. I get that. I mean, it's life-changing money. And if you get hurt, I mean, we've seen some guys get hurt and they cost themselves millions of dollars because they got hurt in the bowl game. I mean, yeah, it's happened. It's happened a lot recently. But I still this is a whole nother level. You're talking about setting out 4 or 5 games. I mean, you got to have some kind of pride in what you're doing and in your teammates, finishing out the season. I don't like it at all. I think it's a terrible line of thinking. I think even though the Eagles, I don't know if you ever heard Jason Kelsey when they were really bad. So they beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl in like 2017 season. And then in either like 18 or 19, I think it was in 19 when they still had Doug Peterson as a quarterback, or it was the head coach. They were terrible. They weren't very good. And everybody said, oh, you should fold the season and get the number 1 pick and draft Trevor Lawrence, I think it was at the time. And he said no. And he got up there. It was like late in the season. They had like 3 or 4 wins. And he said, no, we're going to try to win every week because you're never going to win a Super Bowl with that mindset of trying to lose games. How you win Super Bowls and how you do be successful is no matter what, the odds against you, no matter where you're at, you have a winning culture and you try to do things right and you try to win. Now look at them. They're bounced back in the Eagles. Big fan of Jason Kelsey. Always have. I thought that was a great comment. And I just think this mindset by Emmanuel Acho saying that is just it's the opposite of how I think. I don't know. I'm not for it. I think it's terrible, ridiculous, even suggesting it.
I agree, man. It's and people say that's easy for y'all to say. Y'all don't have millions of dollars on the line. And that is true. He's already won the Heisman Trophy. So I understand, like, Acho's comments make sense to me. If I take my thoughts out of my just emotions, like, let's just look at it. Like, his statements are factual. Yeah, you've already won the Heisman Trophy. That's a long shot. Playoff, long shot. Pac-12, long shot. All this stuff, long shot. What I will say, if I'm Caleb Williams, I'm not sitting out because, one, and you're seeing it in Boulder, Colorado here with Dion, right? All of a sudden that shine is gone.
Yeah.
Now Dion is still probably for the rest of his time in Boulder is going to have a lot of media coverage. He's doing the commercials. I mean, guy's a dynamic individual. He's always going to do that. Caleb Williams has got to, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he did, but I don't think he should, because this mess about wanting ownership in whatever team drafts you, buddy, you're good, but you're not that good. And these last 2 games have proven it. So if I'm Caleb Williams, I would kind of sit down, shut up, and come back out here and play some games and try to blow teams out the rest of the year and show these NFL owners, hey man, yeah, you know what? I've got some swag, I've got a little attitude about me, but I back it up. When the chips are down, I'm still a competitor, because you'll probably still be a high draft pick, but I find it hard to believe that an NFL GM is going to take a chance on what could essentially be just Dak Prescott 2.0 with an attitude.
Yeah.
Oh man, I want ownership. Oh, and I quit on my team 7 games into the season and just hung it up and got ready for the draft. Like, I still think we're at the NFL where that stuff matters. Carries enough weight to where I could see him not going number 1 overall. And I think he's got to sit down, shut up, and play football.
I agree with you. If I'm an NFL GM I wouldn't have any questions about his talent and his playmaking ability. He's shown that. I think he is, as far as talent, generational, and about his ability to play make or to make plays and out of the pocket and some of the throws he's made. I mean, that's generational talent. There's not a lot of those that come around all the time. But I have concerns already. Off the field antics, wanting a stake in ownership. I wouldn't like that. Thinking I'm above other people. I wouldn't like that. The stuff with disrespecting his opponents, the fingernail polish stuff he did last year. I wouldn't like some of that stuff. Some of the stuff, he's talked about him and his dad. There's a lot of stuff I wouldn't like. But you have to judge that based on his talent. But if I'm an NFL GM and then he quits on his team with 4 or 5 games to go in the season, I would have major concerns with that as an NFL GM. You're wanting me to draft you number 1 with my number 1 draft pick, give you millions and millions of dollars and invest in you as a person to lead my franchise.
Make you the face of my franchise.
Face of my franchise. And you just quit on your team. What is that going to say if we're not in the playoff race? And you're just like, well, I don't want to get hurt playing behind a battle line, and we're not making the playoffs this year anyway. Well, my ankle kind of hurts, so I'm gonna call it quits the rest of it. I would have major concerns about that. I would question it if I was an NFL GM. Because the talent is one thing, but if you're not gonna be there and be all in with an NFL franchise getting millions of dollars, because who's to say, well, I'm already getting paid millions of dollars, I don't need to risk getting hurt. I don't know. To me, it sends a bad message, and that's how I feel about it. So
I agree. And the NFL, the quarterback position is so mental as it is.
Yep.
At any level, much less at the highest level. And how many guys have been seemingly just as talented or close to talented as Caleb Williams come in and can't hack it in the NFL? And the mental game, they find out, is a lot more, studying the film, studying the playbook, studying your opponent, learning, actually reading, being coachable. That stuff matters a lot. And yeah, I mean, if you're not mentally tough, you're not going to make it in the NFL, especially at the quarterback. I do understand it's a business, though. I understand, hey, NIL shows us, if in nothing else, it is a business. These are athletes who have.
That's even more reason why.
But
if I was him with NIL now, I'd play to go prove everybody wrong that I'm mentally tough and I can overcome this. Hey, we're not going to win a national championship, but I'm going to go try my hardest to win the rest of my games. If I were to get hurt, he can just come back to college, and he might not get as much as he'd get if he was a first overall draft pick, but he's going to get a couple million. Just rehab, come back to college, and prove it again. Prove I should still be the number 1 draft pick. I don't know. That's just what I think. I think it would send a terrible message if he were to sit out. I don't like guys sitting out to begin with. So thanks for the question, Mike from Dallas. Let's get to our picks, Jimmy. We gotta get on a roll here. NFL, we're killing it. We had another phenomenal week in the NFL. College, I was 2-2, Jimmy 1-3. Combined below 500.
I don't know what it is, man.
I don't either. I mean, I didn't have a good week last week. College, it's unbelievable. Just the amount of ways we find to lose some of these bets. But anyway, we go back at it. It's in there, Jimmy. We've had success. We've had a winning record every year. So we got to find a way. There's still a lot of ball left. There's time to salvage this. Like I said, we're right there around 500. Just got to get back to it. I got 3 for you this week. I'm going to trim it down. I'm going to go 3. I've been going 3 in the NFL. I'm going to go 3 in college. Try to get that winning streak.
I'm going the opposite way, man.
You going more?
5. 5 this week. I got to do something to get back on track.
There you go.
I've tried a lot. I've tried a little.
You go 5-0. I mean, you got a winning record.
Boom. Let's do it.
All right. We'll let you start since you got 5.
Let's start it off. BYU, Texas. I mentioned this one earlier. Give me BYU plus 17.5 for everything we said. Injury bug on defense for Texas, since Texas is starting Malik Murphy with Quinn Ewers sidelined for a few weeks. BYU 5-2, still a good football team coming into Austin. Texas wins this. but I think 17.5 is too much. Give me BYU plus 17.5.
100% agree. I'm all on board. I have this one circled for coffee with Creta. I'm going to see what the line does. But and also, not only the new quarterback starting, making their first start ever, sounds like it's going to be Malik. Steve Keegan basically said that. And he said they're going to split reps, but he basically said on his press conference Monday, if it was today, Malik would start. But they're going to split reps, and we'll see. Sounds like it's going to be Murphy. Not only that, there's defensive guys that are questioned, starters on defense. So I think that's the smart play. I'm surprised at 17.5. I agree with you. I got it circled. I'm going to look at it for coffee with Creta. My first one, I'm going to go Nebraska at home minus 2.5 against Purdue. Nebraska has won 4 of their last 5 games, and the one in that stretch they didn't win was against Michigan, top team in the country. So Michigan, Matt Rule, he's a great coach. He did great things at Temple, great things at Baylor. I think he's going to be successful at Nebraska, about as successful as you can be moving forward in the Big Ten. I think they got a chance to make a bowl. They're 4-3, but like I said, they've won 4 of the last 5. And what's hurt them in their first 3 losses were turnovers, except for Michigan. Michigan was just better, but they had a lot of turnovers. That opening game against Minnesota, their defense has played really well. I think if Nebraska, they takes care of the football, they're at home. Purdue's not a good football team. Purdue's 2-5. I think they're getting a groove. They're playing good defense. They take care of the football. I think they cover this one. Nebraska -2 at home against Purdue.
I like it. Trying to come off our NFL luck. UMass and Army, give me under 48. Under's been going in the NFL. Let's see if we can get one in college. Army, UMass is winless. Army, we know what they like to do with the football, keeping it on the ground. And I like the under in this one. Under 48, UMass and Army.
UMass is terrible, so that helps. Army didn't score last week. They played LSU but didn't score. Army likes to control the clock. They don't run a lot of plays. I think that's a good bet. I like that one. My second game, Iowa State on the road. Iowa State -2.5 at Baylor. Baylor plays a lot of close games. But, Jimmy, did you know Iowa State is second in the Big 12? Of course, they're tied with Iowa State, Texas, Oklahoma State, and Kansas State. They're all 3-1 in conference. Iowa State's tied for second in the Big 12.
Wow.
Their only loss.
I didn't know that.
Yep. Their only loss was Oklahoma, and they played Oklahoma tight for a half. I think Iowa State is a better team than Baylor. Baylor's had some issues this season. Iowa State's won 2 in a row coming off that Oklahoma win, beating TCU, and then with the win last week. Also, they had to start a new quarterback. Remember the betting scandal Iowa State had? Their freshman quarterback, Rocco Beck, he's really starting to get in a groove. He's played well. He's thrown multiple touchdowns the last 2 games. I think Iowa State finds a way to win -2.5 at Baylor.
I like it. Going opposite of my last pick, Tulane and Rice, over 54.5. Both of these teams can put up points. Tulane's favored by 10.5, which I think is kind of too much. I think both these teams are going to be in the 30s. So give me Tulane and Rice over 54.5.
Nice. Go points. My last one, Coastal Carolina, a little Sunbelt action. Coastal Carolina +4 at home against Marshall. I really believe the wrong team's favored here. Coastal Carolina won back-to-back games. They're really starting to find their groove. Their quarterback, Grayson McCall's in his 5th season as a starter. He had some injuries, but he's starting to play better. They had the big win against Appalachian State 2 weeks ago. Forget he has a new head coach and offensive coordinator, play caller, Tim Beck. Completely different system, but I think they're really starting to find their groove as they've won 2 in a row. Marshall started 4-0. They've now lost 3 in a row. They're in the middle of their hardest part of their schedule where they're playing 4 of 5 games on the road, and they've lost the 2 previous road games. So Marshall, after 4-0, lost 3 in a row. I think Coastal Carolina is probably the better team right now, and they're at home. They're getting 4. Home team getting points. What's better than that? I think Coastal Carolina probably wins outright, but I'm going to take Coastal Carolina +4 home against Marshall.
I like it. My last 2 have the same spread.
Okay.
I'm going to rapid fire them then. Memphis at UNT, Memphis -7. I think Memphis is the better team. I think 7 is not enough for this one. Memphis -7, and UNLV Fresno State. Give me Fresno State -7. Now, both these teams they're both 6-1. UNLV, Barry Odom, Arkansas DC, goes to UNLV. First year has the Running Rebels, bowl eligible, 6-1. Fresno State, like we talked about earlier, their only loss is last second to Wyoming, an underrated Wyoming team this year.
Yes, very good.
Fresno State, I still believe, is the better team.
Agreed.
I looked at the over/under a little bit, but I said, nah. I think both these teams. I think Fresno State can really play defense too, and I think that's going to get our under. But the under was 57.5. I think Fresno State's defense will keep them from scoring because UNLV's putting up points. I mean, they're the 40s. But Fresno State's not giving up anything close to that. So I think Fresno State -7 at home against UNLV.
All right, we got 8 bets for you. Let's get the Gridiron Grind recap for you. Jimmy's got 5. He's got BYU plus 17.5, UMass Army under 48, Tulane Rice over 54.5, Memphis -7, and Fresno State -7. Myself, I have Nebraska -2.5, Iowa State -2.5, and Coastal Carolina +4. 8 winners. It's going to be a heck of a weekend. I'm going to the World Series game 1 in Arlington Friday night, and then I'm going down to Austin, watch Malik Murphy's first start against BYU. So I got a sports heavy weekend this weekend. I'm looking forward to it.
You know what I like is I can still root for your Horns.
Yeah,
win by 17.
Oh, I'm with you, dude. I'm that's probably going to be on Coffee with Creta. I mean, 17.5 is too many points for a quarterback making his first start.
Give me a Horns by 17. Give me a cover.
You could win. Texas could win by 17. Texas could feel great about that, and you'd still win the bet.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll take it. I like it. Thanks for joining us. Gridiron Grind College Football Podcast coming out on Apple Podcasts and YouTube. Also, our NFL pod comes out Thursdays. Apple Podcasts, YouTube. We'll be back with Cowboys live post-game show this week. Thanks for listening. That's the Gridiron Grind. We will see you next week. Go Rangers.